Okay, this is probably kind of weird advice or unpopular advice, or maybe not even unpopular, but just uncommon advice, which is why I'm making this video today. But I think that you should surrender more. I know surrendering sounds really dramatic and it's just like, what does that even mean? Like, does it mean giving up? But I wanted to clear the air and share some thoughts around why the theme of surrendering has been something that's been pretty helpful in my life recently. But first, I wanted to hash out the difference between surrendering and giving up, because I think we often associate the term surrender with giving up, and it has this negative connotation to it. I think a common misconception is that people think that surrendering is the easier route, when in reality, I think surrendering or making the active decision to choose to let go of something can actually be way harder than just staying where you are right now. So surrendering is just letting go of resistance when things aren't really necessarily going your way. It's when you actively make the choice to accept things, even if they're not necessarily going the way that you once thought they would, and allowing yourself to kind of go with the flow of things. Giving up, on the other hand, I feel usually comes from more of an emotional place, a place of frustration where you just want to get something over with, and from there on out, you're not necessarily taking steps to make any change. You're kind of just like, okay, I'm done with this, that's it, like, not gonna revisit it again. Versus surrendering, where I feel like you're actually allowing yourself to listen to yourself more and make changes as needed. To paint a more practical picture, think about when you're sitting in traffic. If traffic is really bad that day, there's a few different ways that you could respond to it. You could be someone who is really upset about it. It ruins your day, and for the rest of the day, you're just like, wow, I was stuck in really bad traffic. That sucked. Or you could be the person who sits in their car, sees that the traffic is really bad, and kind of just accepts it for what it is. Maybe you even go one step further and you take a positive spin on it and you're like, okay, you know what? At least it's time to listen to more of my favorite music or something. That latter example is, again, surrendering to the idea that, hey, traffic is bad, I can't control this, so I might as well accept it for what it is. I can't change anything about it. Versus the first scenario where you're really frustrated and stressed over something that you can't even control. And so you kind of ought to ask yourself, why would you let yourself get so consumed in things that you can't change? Wouldn't life be just so much easier if you could just accept it? Which I know, again, is much easier said than done. I guess what it really boils down to is just realizing that there are some battles worth fighting for, and that there are others that aren't so much. I've thought about this theme of surrendering a lot because I think that in many ways it's helped me move forward, just being more aware of what I'm actually feeling and how to actually respond to situations. And it kind of lets me get out of my head a little bit. So I'll give you a few examples in my own life. And this is probably one of the biggest ones that I've talked about in a few different videos now. And it was last year when I was deciding whether or not I wanted to quit my job to pursue content creation full time. I remember at the time I was really ruminating on what to choose, and the advice that my friend had told me, or the conversation that we had, was essentially along the lines of him making me realize that no matter what path I chose, there would be discomfort. Whether I choose to stay in my job, there's the discomfort of knowing that there's something else I want to do. Or if I decide to go on my own path, quit my job, there's the discomfort of knowing that there's so much unknown in the road ahead. So when you kind of realize that no matter what path you choose, there's going to be discomfort, it kind of allows you to accept reality and surrender a little bit and just be like, you know what, like, if there's going to be this discomfort on either path, I might as well choose the one that excites me more, or I can control a bit more. Another common example that honestly comes up in my life pretty often, and it's a question that I've been asked a few times now too, is the act of surrendering when it comes to productivity or trying to get out of a creative rut. So I was speaking at Build Expo in June, and after my panel, someone had asked me a question and they said, how do you stay motivated even on days where you don't really feel like showing up? I think as a content creator, or anyone working on anything creative, or anyone who's self-employed, they kind of face this often because you have to be disciplined. No one is telling you to do the work or get the thing done. You have to be self-motivated to do that. The response that I had for this person was that sometimes it's not really about forcing yourself to still do the work when you know that you're not feeling that great or that you don't want to do it. Sometimes it's actually about just acknowledging the fact that you are feeling these things and allowing yourself to adapt as needed and actually take a break, which again, I know is so much easier said than done. Like, I still struggle with this a lot in my day-to-day life. Even now, filming this video, like, it's me a few days after coming out of my own creative rut of feeling like I wasn't really creating a lot. But again, I think that in those cases, it's really important to listen to yourself. I think a lot of times people think that it's easier to give up or surrender, when in reality, I think surrendering is actually a really hard thing. Like, have you ever sat at your desk? I know you've probably had those days, because I've had many of these days, where you're literally sitting at your desk and you're trying to do work and you're like, you know what, I'm gonna lock in. And so you're sitting there and you're there for hours on end. And the amount of hours that you're putting in is not actually resulting in a lot of high quality output or work. And so instead you feel like you wasted the day because you never fully relaxed, but then you also never fully got a lot of work done. So instead you just feel not great about it in the end. I think for me, that situation has happened a handful of times where now when it happens, I try to let myself just let go and actually take a break, actually step away, actually just do whatever it is else that I want to do that day other than work. Because otherwise, again, you're kind of half in, half out. It's this weird feeling. And so in those cases, I feel like it is harder to turn that part of your brain off that says, I should be doing work right now. It's harder to actually let yourself take that break. And so that's why I think surrendering is actually not an easy thing to do, because it's so different from what society tells you to think or do. And then one final example that I can think of, and this one's a bit more holistic, is the idea of surrendering or letting go in the context of pursuing any big project, idea, startup, whatever it may be. I think that a lot of the times when we have a big project or thing that we want to pursue, we are so easy to pour so much time and energy into it, so much so that it starts to feel like a part of our identity. And I think that this is both a really cool thing, but also a really dangerous thing in a way, because when you allow that project or that thing that you're pouring a lot of time and energy into become a part of you in a way, or part of your identity, when that thing wraps up or is done or whatever it may be, maybe you outgrow it and whatever, it kind of makes you feel like you lost a bit of a sense of self. And so when I was talking to a friend years ago, when I was first getting into entrepreneurship and the idea of actually acting on your ideas, one of the things that my friend had talked to me about was just the importance of the ability of being able to walk away from any idea at any time. I think that the more that you're able to surrender to something and just walk away from this idea or this thing that you held so closely to you, the less it controls you, the more that you can actually live your life and do many things without feeling too attached to the outcomes. But yeah, I guess with all that being said, you're probably thinking and wondering right now, how does one even surrender? Like, what does surrendering even kind of look like? And this is still something that I'm trying to find a clear answer to in my life, but I think there's three things that I try to keep in mind. The first one is actually taking note and being honest about what you're feeling. If you feel lazy that day, if you feel unmotivated, if you feel some sort of friction, don't just push yourself to push past that feeling and move forward. If anything, take the time to think about why it is you're feeling that friction, acknowledge that, and then make adjustments as needed. I think that the more that you try to just push yourself through those days, the more you're actually ignoring the root cause of the problem, and the more you will find yourself in that position again of just wondering why you're feeling this friction because you never addressed it in the first place. With that being said, the second thing that I like to do is sit with that feeling for a little bit. Again, when you're feeling unmotivated, confused, whatever, allowing yourself to actually sit down and feel that discomfort for a little bit is really healthy. You don't always have to be on the move, making the next decision, always being productive. And so allowing yourself to sit with that feeling for a little bit actually is really beneficial. And then finally, the last thing, and I think this is the hardest, is just building this trust with yourself that even if you surrender today, you have to be able to trust yourself that things will work out and that things will be okay. Again, in the context of burnout, it's like trusting that even if you take a break today, you will still get that work done another day. It's really hard to build this trust with yourself, but I think the more that you do it and realize, wow, the world didn't fall apart, the easier it becomes over time. But it is still, just generally speaking, like a pretty tricky thing in life that I feel like no matter how old you are or what you do in life, it's just something that comes up. But yeah, I think if there's one thing that you should take away from this video, it's that it's okay to surrender sometimes. And surrendering doesn't actually mean giving up. If anything, it is actually much harder to surrender. So in a way, it's a sign of strength, I suppose. But yeah, I just wanted to share these thoughts in my mind because, again, this has been a very big theme in my life recently. So hope you found this helpful, hope it resonated. And with that, I will see you in the next video.